suicide. That's the word. I'm out. Don't try to get me to say cantaloupe.
Big finger does.
There you go. All right, everybody. There's a classic question in this week's parsha, really with the whole Yosef story, which is, how is it that Yaakov Avinu did not know that Yosef was alive? Yaakov Avinu is in communication with Hashem. Yaakov Avinu interacts with angels. So how is it that if he knows it, he's in these spiritual realms, how does he not know that it's all a fake and that Yosef is actually alive? So the way that this works is when the brothers reveal to Yaakov that Yosef is actually alive, it says, "V'tichi ruach Yaakov avihem." His spirit was alive. And on that, Onkelos says that when it says, "V'tichi ruach Yaakov," his spirit was alive, that's talking about Ruach HaKodesh. His Ruach HaKodesh was revived. And here Rashi says that during the entire time that he thought that Yosef was dead, the Shekhinah departed from him. And he did not have any Ruach HaKodesh. And because he did not have any Ruach HaKodesh, he could not know that Yosef was actually alive. And on this, the Medrash Lekach Tov explains that we have a principle that you cannot have, he says, you cannot have nevuah. He says the Shekhinah does not rest on people, lo mitoch atzvut, velo mitoch atzlut. What are the two things? If you have these two character traits, the Shekhinah won't go on you. It is atzlut, which is laziness, and atzvut, which is sadness. If you're sad, the Shekhinah departs. And because Yaakov was sad, he was not able to have Ruach HaKodesh to know what's going on, that Yosef is still alive. Now, why is it that these two things cause you to lose your Ruach HaKodesh? Because Ruach HaKodesh is understood to be basically somewhere on the Nevuah spectrum. And what is Nevuah all about? Nevuah is always directed towards the future. That's what Nevi'im do, right? They tell what's going to happen. And if you're in a state of atzlut, which is laziness, then you are disconnected from the future, right? You're saying, I'm just going to lie in bed and there's no point. Why should I bother doing anything? There's no point in anything to look forward to. There's no future as far as I'm concerned. That's what laziness is connected to. So if you're disconnected from that, then you cannot have Ruach HaKodesh. Similarly, atzvut. What is atzvut? Atzvut is sadness, but in this context, it means depression. If a person is depressed and doesn't think that things can possibly get better in the future, then again, they are disconnected from that future, and they lose the Shekhinah, they lose the Ruach HaKodesh. The Gemara in Brachot says similarly, that a person is not allowed, he says, Einom din l'tfilah, you are not allowed to daven Shmona Esrei if you have the atzlut feeling or the atzvut feeling. Now, what does that mean? What, you can't be sad and daven? People are sad and daven all the time. But what are they saying? You can't be depressed and daven. What do you have to be when you daven? You have to have hope that the tefillah that you're saying can possibly do something. And on this, Rashi says, this is why it's very important before Shemona Esrei. What's the rule before Shemona Esrei? You have to be somech geula letefillah. You have to talk about the geula right before you daven Shemona Esrei. Because when you talk about the geula, what do you say? The Jewish people had a hard time in Egypt, but what happened at the end? Ga'al Yisrael. Hashem took us out. That's supposed to give us some optimistic vibe. Then you go into Shemona Esrei, and as sad as you are, at least you're hopeful. It worked out in the past. It could work out in the future. Similarly, Rashi says that's why in Mincha, you have Ashrei, because what do you say? Ritzon Yirei Av Ya'aseh. Hashem listens to the people who fear Him. Hashem listens to prayers. That gives you a bit of optimism, and then you can enter into your Shemona Esrei. Now listen, my friends, this is what I'm going to talk to you tonight about. I'm going to give you my understanding of the keys to a successful marriage and a successful married life. Now, I just want to preface by saying that this is all going to be with hopeful, optimistic, forward-looking vibes. Yes? Now I'm going to tell you another thing. I was a rabbi in Virginia for 10 years. People came to me with all their marriage problems and all that kind of business. I also been teaching for 20 years. By now I've been students that are married, divorced, and remarried, and all kinds of situations happen, yes? and I keep up and I hear broken engagements, not broken engagements, all kinds of stuff. Yes? Good. Now I'm going to give you, from my perspective, the way that it should work out well. Now, if you detect in my talking that I'm telling you things and you're worried about those things, yes? So I'm telling you, be hopeful and be optimistic. You're all young and you can change and everything is still wide open for you, so everything is going to be okay. Good. And let's say another preface, that this is just my opinion from my lived experience, yes? And you're free to disagree and do whatever you want, and good luck to you all. Good. Let us begin like this. We're going to say, who gets married? People get married. So what is the first step? You have to be a person. Now I'm going to tell you what it means to be a person. I'm going to do it for real. There's a certain type of human out there in the world. My wife likes to call them potatoes. I prefer the term a dud, but it's all potato vibes. Now there's a certain constellation of character traits. People who have this constellation of character traits combined, it will not bode well for your future. So these are things, other people who have this are to be avoided to the degree possible. And if you have this, you fix it. Now, these are the three things that go together sometimes, and this is the perfect storm of being an awful person. Step number one, people who are completely self-centered. Yes? They think they are the best person ever on planet Earth. They know it all. They don't need to hear anything. They're the best at everything. Good. That's one character trait. However, that could be good, and then you could be like a captain of industry. You're going to invent stuff. You're so smart. You invent electric cars and cure for cancer. Fantastic. But it gets bad when a person has this attitude, because I am so smart and I am so perfect, I don't have to do anything. And then this self-centered person who has this inflated sense of self also now is lazy. And they're like, yeah, I know it all. I don't have to learn anything. I am the best. I don't have to try at anything. I don't have to try to ever improve myself or change. So self-centered combined with laziness. Now I'm going to tell you what sometimes happens with these people. These people, the world doesn't recognize how great they are. Yes, they're thinking, hey, I'm really a great person, but the world is not responding to that. And people are just thinking, I don't know, I think maybe you're just an annoying person. But they feel that they're super great and super perfect. And this leads to characteristic number 3, which is they develop a mean streak. And they are so great, the world doesn't recognize it. What's going on over here? And they could be nasty. When you have this constellation of 3 things, that is going to be, I will say, these people, they don't help other people. They do not like to take on themselves any kind of responsibility. It's like, why should I be doing anything? I'm fantastic. These are people also who have very, very, very low levels of resilience, because since they're so perfect in their mind and they're not used to trying and putting in effort, then anytime there's a challenging situation, they usually fold very, very easily. Now in certain situations, I've seen it both ways. Sometimes it's boy marries dud girl. Sometimes it's girl marries dud boy. If it's a girl marrying a dud boy, but maybe you've seen such situations in your reality, then what happens? This is a guy who thinks he's amazing, but for some mysterious reason, he could never really hold down a job, right? He could never really manage, even though he's like so great and such an amazing person, yeah? And then what usually happens in that kind of a relationship is that the wife kind of has to take over the traditional male stuff. And she's the one that has to, in the traditional way, she works in something and he's sitting at home saying, how come no one recognizes my genius? That's girl marrying boy dud. Sometimes it works the other way. where a guy marries a girl dud. When a guy marries a girl dud, then the situation that happens is that the woman is more or less non-functional in any of the traditional womanly marriage roles. And this is a situation where the dad winds up fundamentally being the human who is raising the children on his own. The kids know to come to him for any kind of help because the wife is a, let's call it dud, non-functional kind of a human being who thinks she's so great but doesn't really actually want to do anything. Now, what's the trial run for this kind of an experience? It's the experience that you're having right now, where you live not with your family and you're living with roommates, yes? The way that you know that you will be a functioning partner with other human beings is if you're able to take responsibilities, if you're able to do things for other people, if you don't think that everybody has to do everything for you. Also, if you're not mean to other people. Now, I'm going to tell you something. There is such a thing when people are comfortable with each other and people tease people a bit, and that's all in good fun, and that's normal, and that's fair, yes? Hey, this, hey, that. People do that. I do that. It's something that people do. But sometimes people are just mean. There are things you're never supposed to say to another person. You never talk to someone about, I don't know, their looks. You never talk to somebody about those kinds of things, stuff that is not in their control. Nobody makes those comments to another person. If someone is doing that, there's a fundamental flaw, in my opinion, in their basic character. They're saying things that anyone with sense does not say, and they're saying things in order to be hurtful. I'm telling you right now, if you're a human being, that you're dealing with other people who make hurtful comments to you and make you feel bad, and when you're with them, there is no joy, but instead you feel bad about yourself, and it's not bringing joy into your life, avoid them. If you find yourself being a person who says hurtful comments to others, you take care of it now. You figure out a way and you try to say, why am I doing that? What's driving me to be mean to another human being who's just a regular person? You figure out why that is and you eliminate it from yourself. And that's the thing right now. This is the trial run. All of this roommate situation is the trial run for living in other situations and seeing how you will get along well with others. Good. That's the first thing about being a person. Second thing, here's a rule. You cannot fundamentally change other people. Other people are how they are. Now, can other people change? Sure, they can change. But how do other people change? Because they choose and they want to change. But you cannot change them. And all of your teachers, do they always talk about, I don't know, what do they talk about here at Harova? They tell you about being frum and stuff, and they talk and stuff like this, yes? It only works to change when you yourself make that decision, I want to be a different kind of a person. But you can't change somebody else. So when you're with another person, what do you have to accept about them? This is how they are. If you go into a situation saying, this person is a fixer-upper, and I will fix this person, I will save this person, that is not going to be all right. Whatever it is, you have to accept. Now, I'll give you an example. You want to hear a true story? This is a true story. Now, I'll tell you something. In my family, I'm the husband, and my wife is the wife, yes? We're kind of traditional that way. So what happens is, hey, listen to this. You know, I work at Midreshet Harova, yeah? And since I work at Midreshet Harova, we have like crazy schedule. What's the crazy schedule? You start your Pesach break at Rosh Chodesh Nisan, yes? You got 2 full weeks off before Pesach even begins, yeah? The rest of the world, people are going to work. I'm just at home. So you know what we do in my family? I clean for Pesach. That's what I do. My wife, not involved. I do it. Because my wife has a normal human being job, and she goes to work, and then she comes home. And meanwhile, you know what? One room a day, how long does it even take? I mean, and then you get Pesach is done. And also, I'll tell you a secret. I got a little bit of the OCD, and I like to clean. It makes me feel good, and I like to clean. I'm going to tell you what happens. In my family, I have a night table, and my wife has a night table. My night table, I got a clock on it, and I have a place for a book, and then I have glasses, and there's a lot of empty space too. It's very good feng shui on my night table. Meanwhile, my wife's night table, I don't know, it's like complete chaos over there. There's like medicines that she last used like 3 weeks ago, but it's still sitting around over there. And there's like an earring, and I don't even know what is going on over there. Just complete clutter, yes? So you know what happened? I said to my wife, you know what? I see that your night table very cluttering. So you know what I did? I went and I bought a shelf, yes? And I built a shelf about 2 feet above the night table, and there you could put other stuff, and it'll be a nice, neat area, yeah? Now you can already predict what's going to happen. 2 weeks later, we have a chaotic night table and a chaotic shelf. That's what happens. But this is how human beings relate to each other. You have to know that's how she is, and there's nothing to do to change it. And if you don't like it, you just change your attitude. And I'll tell you in the nicest way. You know what's the nicest thing? That kind of thing that you say, wait a second, how come you're different than me and you don't do things the way I like? It becomes a cute, fun thing that you appreciate, and you say, oh, that's kind of adorable. You're like all chaotic like that. That's adorable. Then you turn it into a good thing, yes? Because I'm telling you now, you're not in control of other people's behavior. What you're in control of is your attitude. So if there's some guy out there that you're interested in, and this is a broken guy, and you say, I will fix this guy, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to happen. He'll fix himself, either yes or no, but it's not you fixing anybody. That can't happen. Now, I'll tell you another thing. The other tip goes like this. When two human beings are together, every human being comes from their own kind of a background. And even if you're very, very similar, there are going to be differences. Listen, my wife and I, both of our fathers, Czechoslovakian Holocaust survivors, yes? Very, very similar. However, I will say like this. My wife grew up in a situation where birthdays were celebrated and are a very, very big deal. My mother-in-law has a calendar, and on it, she has all these like obscure relatives and their birthdays and stuff. And she's like, yeah, it's cousin Jonas's birthday today. And like, I don't even know who cousin Jonas is. I'm not interested in cousin Jonas. But she says, I am sending him happy birthday wishes. Yes? That's how it is in my wife's family. In my family, I'll tell you, after bar and bat mitzvah, your birthday was functionally ignored. Birthdays in my family, I don't know what to say. That's the culture in my family. Birthdays are for children. Once you're grown up, birthdays don't count. You know what I got from my in-laws on my birthday this year? 200 shekel bill. They said, it's your birthday, here's a 200 shekel bill. You know what I got from my own mother? A text message. But that's normal, because I know that's how it is in my family growing up, yes? Now, I want to say something. Which approach is correct and which is not correct? They're both fine. They're both valid, yes? But you have to understand that if you're marrying someone, or if you're in a relationship with someone who has a birthday passive family culture, what could you not really expect from them to make a whole big deal about your birthday, yes? And vice versa. You have to, wait a second, for them, birthday is very important. So what I'm telling you is like this. You have to take into account that people of different backgrounds have different attitudes about different kind of things. I'll say another thing. In my family, it is not normative for human beings to end off phone calls with parents by saying, I love you. Yes? I don't know, maybe there's some of you here that it's very normative that when you're on your phone with the parents, the last thing that you say to those parents is, I love you, bye-bye, or bye-bye, I love you, however you want to do it, yes? And I know that there might be people in the audience right now who, if that's the way you would end off a phone call with your parent, it would make you feel quite awkward and weird, and that's just not a thing that you say. Now, knowing that, if you come into a relationship, then what do you have to understand? If you're a person who likes the I love yous, but you marry a guy who's not from an I love you kind of a culture, then what are you going to have to do? Well, explain it to him and say, listen, this is what I'm used to happening, and this is how I would like you to relate to me, yeah? So it's okay, you just say, but you have to have some kind of an understanding that this is what causes differences between people sometimes, and there's no reason to get upset one way or the other. You're just different. Now, I'll tell you a story about a student I had. There's a student I had from Chicago, and listen to this. He lived in Chicago, and he married the girl next door. Yeah, very nice story. There was a girl next door. They grew up, blah, blah, blah. They got married, happy, yes? What happens, though? The guy keeps calling me up. He says, my wife is always upset at me because I keep on mixing up the milchik and fleishik. I'm like, listen, you're a grown human being. Take care of yourself. Why are you doing this? So he says, you know what happened? That all the houses on the block have the same kind of structure. All the houses on the block have the same kitchen setup. In his house growing up, the top drawer was the milchik utensils, and the second drawer was the fleishik utensils. And this girl growing up in the exact same house, the top drawer was fleishik, and the second drawer was milchik. Now she sets it up this way. What does he keep on doing? Grabbing, and milchik, fleishik, and his mind is all confused. The way he grew up his entire life, there you go. So what I'm saying here is somebody being bad? Nobody is being bad. No one's being bad, but you have to respect the cultural kind of differences that you're coming from. I'll give you one other example. What is Shabbat like in different families? I would imagine that there are some families here that what happens on Shabbat, very, very social. What's going on? There's guests. There's people coming in all the time. The door is unlocked. People are out late. People are walking in and out. The meals, in the meals, some neighbor walks in the middle. Oh, come sit down. The meals are going on for hours and hours. And this is considered good, festive, Shabbos kind of vibes, yes? And in other families, what is Shabbat all about? Shabbat is quiet. We read on a couch. We doze off a little bit. We have a meal, but we get down to business. The meal is over. We bench. We put on pajamas. We sit in the living room. We move on with our lives. Now, these are two different approaches to Shabbat. Is one of them the right approach and one of them is the wrong approach? It has nothing to do with it. This is not right or wrong. I'm just saying you have to respect and be generous when people have other kinds of approaches about things. That's where it's coming from. Good. Next. I will tell you like this. Hey, I'll tell you a story about my student Shimmy. This is being recorded. Maybe Shimmy is hearing this even now. Now, Shimmy one time was going out with this girl, yes? And he had a dream. He was a lawyer. He was working in a law office, and he had a dream. You know what his dream was? To open up his own real estate firm. Good. He was going out with a girl, and in their discussion, he says to this girl, I'm in this law job, which I really do not like. I do not enjoy this job. It makes me feel awful. It makes me feel dead inside. I'm thinking of opening up my own real estate firm. What did this lady say to him? She said to him, hey, I don't know. This is kind of a very steady job that you have. I don't know about you leaving it and opening up a real estate firm. What happened ultimately? They broke up. Now I'm going to tell you why. Because spouses have to be supportive for each other. The main thing that makes people feel comfortable and secure is that there is someone who is always on your side. You have a cheerleader who's always telling you, you can do it, you got this. True story. When we moved to Israel, my wife is a speech therapist. She says to me, maybe she'll listen to this recording. She says to me, I'm thinking of not working in a hospital. I'm going to open up my own small business, my own clinic for adult speech language disorders. At the time, you know how many there were in all of Israel? 0. She says, I have an idea. I'm going to open up this clinic. What was my approach? I was completely scared of that. I don't know. Open up your own business. What's the odds of small businesses working out or failing? Sounds awful to me. What did I say to my wife? You are amazing. You can do it. Yeah? She opened up a small business, and now it's working well for many years. And you know what? Periodically, she comes over and says, when you told me that you were supportive and that you can do it, that's what gave me the power to go ahead and do this. Meanwhile, inside, I'm like thinking, I don't know that this could even work. It doesn't seem, something. So now I'm going to tell you something. Every person has dreams. Every person has dreams. Do not crush other people's dreams. If someone says, I'm going to write a novel, then what are you going to tell them? Oh, you know how many people start novels? Come on, you think you're going to write a novel? No. What do you say? You go ahead and write that novel. You know what crushes people's dreams? This world. Planet Earth is a nasty and tough place. It will crush your dreams. You do not need other people telling you your dreams are crushed, your dreams are garbage. Let the world do that for you. But you let people live out their dreams, and that's your job. The attitude to have is like this. The world is tough. The world is nasty. You guys are a team. It's the two of you against everything in the world. And you are the team, and you're taking on the world together. That's the correct attitude, and I think that's what the Torah really means by Ezer Kenegdo, to be a helper, to be supportive. Good. Next, being frum. Let's start like this. Girls, they say they want to marry a frum boy. And what do boys want to marry? A frum girl. Now, I'm going to tell you something to be generous about in your attitudes. Frum for a boy and frum for a girl is different stuff. Yes? You tell me, what's the frumometer for girls? How do you know if a girl is frum? What do you say? I don't know.
Wearing skirts.
Okay, wearing skirts. Fantastic. You tell me, what's frum for a boy? Oh, goes to minyan, learns Torah, all that kind of stuff. Yes? What if somebody says, oh, this is a great girl, she goes to shul 3 times a day. What are people going to say? I don't know, that's not, whatever, that sounds good, but it's the sneeze issue is like the frum level Geiger counter for girls. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I'm a boy, and I'll tell you from boy experience. My wife says all the time, these skirts are so uncomfortable. I got to stay home today. I saw my patients on Zoom, and I wore pajamas, right? I wore sweatpants, yes? And she's like, that is amazing. I'm telling you, from my background, I don't get it. But again, I'm not involved in it. No one's looking at my sleeve length. No one's looking at my clavicle. Nobody's telling me anything about this kind of stuff, yes? So for me, that sneeze thing is like, I don't know, hard, not hard, I don't know, it's whatever it is, just do it. Same thing, what is it that a girl can't understand? What's such a big deal? Go to minyan, you wake up in the morning, you walk out the door, go to a shul, who cares? What's the big deal? What's the big deal? Open up a Gemara, sit there, read the page, 25 minutes, close it, you did it. I'm telling you something for real. The same things that you as girls experience as difficulty being from the girl perspective, and maybe you can't understand the boy from difficulties, the boys have those same kind of kind of problems. So that's what I'm telling you, that a boy can be from. I'm pro davening. Believe me, I'm a big minyan guy. When my son-in-law, this was the first time I had one of my daughters brought home a prospective boyfriend one time, yes? and my son-in-law tipped him off. We come to shul, and he was right on time. That's how I like to come to shul, 5 minutes before shul starts, Shabbos morning. And this dude, he came also. Yeah, and I'm like, whoa, this is impressive. But then later on, I found out my son-in-law told him, oh, if you want, him to like you, that's what you got to do. Yeah, okay. But I think that it is important. But I'm telling you, I could respect in the world that there are boys that it's not easy for them. So I know that there's from people here in the audience, there's from Shana Bet girls over here also. And maybe you're saying, oh, he's got to be a minion guy. Listen, I'm going to tell you what's really important. What's really, really important, that he's a good guy, that he's a nice guy, that he treats you well. And if sometimes he's a little bit iffy about minion, then so be it, okay? That's reality. And I say this also to the boys, that sometimes if there's a girl and there's a little bit of, an elbow once in a while, I'm telling you, it's not going to really be the apocalypse. That's what I feel, okay? Good. Next, there are certain things that are absolute no-goes. Things that you never get involved in. You ready for the red lines? You never say boo